Redditors who grew up with strict parents, what was the most absurd rule you had to live by? My mom wouldn't let me open a new milk without her permission or open anything really without it. Like we would have an extra milk in the garage fridge and I would use the rest of the milk inside. Instead of a normal household where you could just get more, I had to call her and ask. So that meant if she didn't pick up then I would have to wait for her to call back. The first time I realized this wasn't normal is when my friend went to open a new gallon of milk and I got super anxious and was like, dude, you have to call your mom right now or she'll freak out. She was like, my mom will be okay if I need a glass of milk. It suddenly clicked that my mom was a control freak. I was not allowed to use the money cheat on Sims growing up because that's not how the real world works. I used the cheat once and couldn't explain where all the money I had came from, so I was grounded and had Sims taken away. I once got grounded for 2 months because my school bus was late. Backstory: I was 12 years old when this happened. A couple of kids almost got into a fist fight before the school left the parking lot and the bus driver had to get the principal to break it up and escort them back into the school. The bus driver lectured us about fighting before driving us home. This caused us to be 30 minutes late. When I explained this to my mother, she blamed the whole situation on me, which was completely irrational because 1. I barely knew the kids who were involved. 2. I was an introvert and bookworm type who never got into a fight, and 3. If I had been in the fight I would have been taken to the principal's office for punishment instead of being allowed to ride the bus home. She made a rule that I would be grounded every time the bus was late going forward, regardless of the reasoning. I grew up in the northeast part of the United States, so even when the bus driver had to drive home slowly because of snow I would still get punished. Needless to say, I wasn't allowed out of the house much in middle school and high school. I once got grounded because I did the dishes without having to be reminded. My mom said that I was trying to manipulate her and that I must have only done it because I was trying to get something out of her. In reality, all I really wanted out of her was to stop yelling at me about how I never do the dishes without having to be reminded. Go to school, but I won't drive you. Get good grades but don't stay for any extracurricular or sports because once you get home you have a list of chores to do. Must be perfect. There's a water spot on this fork, you have to redo every dish in the house. I just made food after you vacuumed. You missed all these crumbs, do it again. Why are you still up so late? Light off, while trying to get homework done since I spent hours cleaning. No friends over. Curfew is 8 PM. 8:01, you're not allowed in, just stay out. You've done everything I asked. You don't deserve your room. You get the garage. And you need to pay some rent to live under this roof, so you need to get a job. Oh, you got a job, okay, move out. If your stuff is here by the time I get home it's going in the trash. Nobody in my house was allowed to get the mail except my dad. Doesn't matter what time he got home. Leave the mail in the mailbox. He would also personally open all the mail no matter the recipient. He would always know if anyone touched it. We aren't in piles of debt. I am not Harry Potter. I think he just likes control. No one in the house was allowed to shave or have a razor at all. I could go to a barber or shave at a friend's house, but had my PC taken away when I tried at home. I still don't understand my mother's logic behind this one. Had to get home before the sunset. Even though I went to school an hour and a half away and would get home at the same time each day, but always found myself in trouble during winter. My grandmother made me write out the encyclopedia entry on witchcraft when she found out I had read the first 4 Harry Potter books, if that counts. My parents were all over the place with strictness. When I was old enough to drive, my younger sister and I would drive to McDonald's, just a few miles away. My parents would admonish us, whatever you do not eat french fries in the car. Invariably, we would get home, they would run out, open the car doors, sniff, and start screaming at us for eating french fries in the car. We never did. After I turned 9 years old I wasn't allowed to watch cartoons anymore. I hated my dad for it. My dad wouldn't let me go out, at all. The only time he would let me leave the house was to walk to school, and even then, he had to walk me to the entrance. Was teased for it all the time. Due to my isolated upbringing, I'm very socially awkward, and he wonders why I won't go out and find myself a partner. He never raised my sisters that way, just me. He also wouldn't let me chew gum. He would flip out. He has physically pried my mouth open to take the gum out. He is such a bizarre, controlling man. Something less serious. My mom was paranoid everyone and everything was a kidnapper. She hated the mailman on our route. So, when I was young, 3 or 4 years old, my mom told me it was illegal to be outside when the mail came. Around 11:15 every day I'd see that truck coming. I'd hightail it inside the house, terrified I would be spotted. Fast forward 30 years. I still genuinely feel a tinge of panic in the smallest recesses of the back of my brain when I see the mailman arrive. Only now it's overpowered by the excitement of my latest Amazon package I really don't need. My dad was raised with the idea that kids essentially have no opinion, which he passed on to my sister and I. If we were doing anything and he or my mom needed us to do something else, we were expected to immediately drop it and go do the other thing. Which doesn't sound that bad until I'd be in the middle of painting or something else messy, be called to do dishes, then in the middle of dishes be called to clean up the original mess, then go to clean that up and be yelled at for not finishing dishes. And Lord help me if I said just a minute. Or anything of that ilk. I wasn't allowed to leave my room. I could go to the bathroom or kitchen, but I better have a reason to be there. My mom and I didn't get along and she did this count to 3 thing. I used to get in trouble for stuff I didn't do, so I got sent to my room a lot. I would then refuse to go there, so she came up with this rule where she would add an extra hour every time I talked back after she got to 3. I ended up spending 8 hours in my room once because my sister lied about me doing something. If you didn't instantly say what you wanted to eat, my father would cook onions and garlic. He didn't like people wasting his time. I had a ton of absurd rules growing up, too many to just list one. No eating of birthday cupcakes at school. No giving or receiving of birthday presents. No dressing up for Halloween or going trick or treating. No Christmas presents. Must get up every Saturday morning, put on a full suit and tie no matter the heat, and knock on strangers' doors to try to give them propaganda for a cult. Not allowed to have friends who weren't in said cult. Threatened with disownment if I ever wanted out of said cult. I had unlimited texting on my cell phone plan, but couldn't go over 100 in a month or I was grounded. I couldn't shave my legs until I was 16. I did when I was 12. Mom found out and grounded me. I had to ask to get a drink of anything or eat anything. Couldn't go anywhere unless my little brother could go with too, or if he had a play date. If he didn't have anyone to play with, then I couldn't either. We are 8 years apart. This thread just reaffirms my belief that some people shouldn't be parents. I was raised religious and my mom invented a concept called macro-sinning. Home by 11, make it home at 10:50, punished because it was too close to 11, and you're being defiant. I couldn't brush my teeth after breakfast on school mornings. I had braces, and my mom wouldn't let me brush my teeth after breakfast in fear of us being late for school. I offered to make my own breakfast earlier in the morning in order to compensate, so I could get all the gunk out of my braces after eating. However, when I made my breakfast the next morning, she revoked my ride to school privilege. Had to ride my bike to school every day from then on. Luckily my school wasn't a long ride, but rainy days sucked. It was my punishment for being disobedient. My parents weren't really strict, didn't have to be, but one of the dumbest rules I ever had to endure was I had to wear socks at all times, because my stepdad hated me walking around with bare feet. It was only me. Too, my mom could be barefoot, my younger half brother could be barefoot, but I couldn't. To this day I effing hate wearing socks unless I have shoes on. My time to shine. No nail polish, no tights under dresses, no drinking tea, not allowed to watch anything with any cursing. Had to call my parents sir and mom. Now they are upset that I call them this instead of mom and dad, but it's what they ask me to do. Bedtime of 9:30 until I was 18. Parents took my phone at 9 PM every night when I was in high school and read through all of my texts, opening my bank statements. Not a rule, but my parents would read my diary and go through my computer, and once left video cameras up while I was hanging out with a friend and talking. They loved to repeat things I had said or written to me, just to let me know that I had no privacy. In elementary school, my parents sat me down and said, "We just want you to know, if you get pregnant while living with us, we will kick you out." My parents gave my dog away while I was at school one day without telling me. I was 9 and these days they wonder why I never want to share anything with them. What's the most absurd rule your parents have? Leave it in the comments below.